want to start by discussing the pandemic, which is really ravaging the country and especially your state of Louisiana. It's in dire crisis, a record number of hospitalizations. ICUs are running out of beds. You are also a physician. So when you see this, what goes through your mind?
Well, we can stop it. We have it within our power to stop it. Each person that is vaccinated now protects not only herself or himself, but those around him, because no longer is she as likely to pass the infection to others. If we don't want this, we have it within our control. All we need to do is to get vaccinated.
Your state's governor, John Bel Edwards, issued a new mask mandate, put it into effect this week. Was that the right move?
Well, I'm now going to speak as a doctor. If you have a large percentage of your population which is not vaccinated and your infection rate is going up, you got one of two choices. If you're inside, either you're vaccinated or you have to wear a mask. Otherwise, you're at too great a risk to further spread infection, to further pack those emergency rooms, to further prevent people who have terrible accidents from getting cared for because the hospital is full of COVID. And there is a choice. On the other hand, if we don't want mask mandates, get vaccinated, the infection rate goes down and you don't have a mandate.
So it sounds like you're saying that's a yes, given where
As a
things are.
doctor, I will tell you, you've got two choices to stop that infection.
Okay.
Either get vaccinated or wear a mask.
Some governors, like Ron DeSantis in Florida, Greg Abbott in Texas, they're blocking local officials from imposing restrictions like mask mandates. The virus is surging to record highs in those states, including yours. So, as you said, you are a doctor, you are an elected official. Shouldn't local officials be allowed to make decisions like mask mandates if they believe that's best for their local community?
I'm a conservative. I think you govern best when you govern closest to the people being governed. And if a local community is having their ICU is full, and the people at the local schools see that they've got to make sure they stay open because otherwise children miss out for another year of school, and they put in policy, then the local official should be listened to. That is a conservative principle.
So you disagree with Governor DeSantis?
I do disagree with Governor DeSantis. The local official should have control here. I don't want top down from Washington, D.C. I don't want top down from a governor's office. Sometimes, yes, okay, national defense and such like that. But when it comes to local conditions, if my hospital's full and my vaccination rate is low and infection rate is going crazy, we should allow local officials to make those decisions best for their community.
Is he playing politics with this?
You know, I don't know if he's playing politics. I try not to guess other people's motives. I will say politicians should not kind of carte blanche accept what the public health doctor says, but they shouldn't just gratuitously ignore it either. There has to be a balance there. And whenever politicians mess with public health, usually it doesn't work out well for public health. And ultimately, it doesn't work out for the politician because public health suffers and the American people want public health.
This is Senator Bill Cassidy, a Republican, finally speaking up over the handling of this pandemic by other Republican governors like Greg Abbott in Texas and Ron DeSantis in Florida. Because while the virus continues to surge uncontrollably in their states, these Republican rising stars have used the opportunity not to find some humility or change course or acknowledge wrongdoing, but rather to dig in their heels and present themselves as heroes of the GOP. Because apparently, killing off your own base has become a launching pad for success on the right. Take Florida, for example, which has now reached record high cases every single day for the last several days. On Saturday, the state hit nearly 24,000 new cases, which is the most single-day new cases ever. Not just recently, but since the pandemic began. Hospitalizations have also increased at record-breaking levels for 6 consecutive days, with Saturday's hospitalizations at almost 14,000 and nearly half of the state's ICU beds now occupied by COVID patients. And so you would think that this would serve as a wake-up call to Ron DeSantis, that he'd finally deign to take this issue seriously. And so what did he do? He signed an order blocking mask mandates in schools. And then he pushed back against vaccine mandates at Florida hospitals. In other words, rather than recognizing the problem and fixing it, he's exacerbating it. His response is almost scientifically engineered to ensure that this pandemic continues to rage on and that his state will continue to be the epicenter of it. And in Texas, the situation is similarly dire. Cases have doubled over the last week from 5,000 to 10,000. Hospitalizations increased 2,500 to 8,000, a faster rate than at any point in the pandemic. And deaths are rising too. Meanwhile, Abbott issued an executive order opposing mask mandates, COVID-related business restrictions, and vaccination requirements, even going so far as to impose fines up to $1,000 on those who don't comply. The measure bans government agencies from requiring individuals to get vaccinated or providing providing proof of vaccination, public and private entities that receive state funding are also prohibited from denying entry to individuals based on their vaccination status, although nursing homes and living facilities can still require shots for their residents, which is a pretty telling exception because it concedes that vaccinations do make people safer. And so that begs the question, why allow for safety measures for seniors but not for everyone else? Why doesn't the general public get to enjoy the same assurances as nursing home residents about the people that they come into contact with? I guess what I'm trying to ask is, don't all lives matter? What's ironic too is that Cassidy explains that conservatism means governing closest to the people. But because these Republican officials long ago abandoned any semblance of actual conservatism in exchange for Trumpism, well, here we are, where Republicans are issuing sweeping, top-down edicts prohibiting local health officials from enacting public health measures in the middle of a deadly pandemic. Yep, gotta love those small government Republicans. What's especially telling here is that Bill Cassidy has to differentiate in terms of what he'd say as a Republican politician and what he'd say as a doctor. And just the fact that there's a difference at all doesn't exactly bode well. There should be complete overlap between politicians of any party and medical professionals. Why? Because those are the ones who are qualified to keep people healthy, and politicians aren't, so they should defer to the experts. If a politician also wants to go to medical school, then great, but until then, they're not experts, and so their job is to listen to the ones who are. And yet, I wouldn't exactly hold your breath, considering none of what's happening is in the interest of public health. Everything that we're seeing is being done solely because Republicans have planted their flag as the anti-science party, as the party that pushes back against every single measure that would actually help us contain and end this pandemic once and for all. And because that party is driven by a bunch of narcissists who value their own egos above the lives of the people they were elected to serve, they'll never admit fault. They'll never do anything that might be perceived as a sign of weakness because it's not about helping the most people, it's about helping themselves. So we'll inevitably see Ron DeSantis use his failed handling of COVID as a launching pad for his national ambitions. But let that serve as a testament to what the Republican Party actually values. A politician who would sacrifice his own constituents if it meant he could protect his fragile ego. We saw it with Trump, who presided over nearly 500,000 dead Americans in what is now the third biggest mass casualty event in US history. And we're seeing it now with Ron DeSantis, whose own state has needlessly become the epicenter of the virus. For a party that brands itself pro-life, they certainly managed to elevate people who facilitate a lot of deaths. If you enjoyed that video and you're looking for a deeper dive, check out my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. It's a no BS look at the top stories of the week, along with interviews with the top names in politics, like Vice President Kamala Harris, Jen Psaki, Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Katie Porter, Pete Buttigieg, and more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts. Also, if you want to see more videos like this one, click the subscribe link right here on this screen to join the more than 1 million people who've already subscribed to my channel. And finally, to donate to my Don't Be a Mitch fund, where I'm raising money for a whole raft of different voter outreach and voter registration groups in the closest states ahead of midterms in 2022, including Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Texas. You can find that link on this screen as well. Thanks for watching.